Good afternoon. We'll be continuing this conversation we've been having for 2 days, and what we're doing is we're searching for the proper tools and the correct means to change the way we produce and change the way we consume. So basically, just like any hero, we're trying to save the world. This morning we heard that we're all about to die, so yeah, this morning was intense. So right now we're just trying to save the world, but because we're in a hurry, as we're all gonna die, the question becomes, who has the best means? Who has the most efficient levers? How do we change effectively, and how do we do it very fast? You know, basically, should consumers lead the way? Should business change to become social businesses? Or should investors demand actions and lead money to a more sustainable growth? Of course, you're going to say it's a combination of all three. We can all assume that. But my question is, who can do it most efficiently and actually the fastest? And to discuss this with us today, we have the privilege of having people who work for or with the three types of actors: the co-director and founder of the UNESCO award-winning Think and Action Lab, Finding Sustainia, Ms. Shanta Meyer-Nandi. Shanta Meyer-Nandi, apologies. A global community manager at Ashoka, the largest network of social entrepreneurs, Ms. Yeleka Barrett, and the CEO of BlackRock France, Jean-François Cirelli. Thank you all for being here with us this afternoon. Ashoka has a worldwide network of social entrepreneurs. They're active in many fields. They're trying to make a change. Do you think this is the first lever, that companies should become social businesses?
Well, not that companies should become social businesses, but Ashoka has over 40 years of experience identifying individuals with system-changing ideas, the most innovative social innovation in their regions and in their countries. And through this, we've seen in 40 years and 3,000 social entrepreneurs around the world that there are skill sets that everyone can embody and anyone can embody. And so we talk about an everyone a change maker world. And one of these very important skill sets is empathy. So it's empathy for other, empathy for community, empathy for planet, empathy for people. And when people are able to practice empathy and able to work in communities, understanding that we are together, that's when we start to see change happening. That's when we start to see social change happening, and happening at every levels in society and in community.
And here in this room, we are together as well. You have signs on your seats. They're red and they're green. The idea is for you to wave them when you hear something that you agree with, or the red if you don't agree with what's being said. If everybody's a change maker and everybody should practice their empathy, I guess this is where awareness and education come from. And these are your field of expertise. Through your blog and your consulting practice, is this, you know, how can individuals take actions? How do you become enlightened? How do you become aware of what you can do?
It first starts with objective measurements, which means that you are able to identify the areas where you can make the most change, which is mobility, consumption, what you eat. And then, of course, you also need to bridge this think and action gap and know exactly how to, because it's one thing to know I should eat in a certain way or consume in a certain way if you don't know how to do it. And then there's the third aspect, which I call the well-being aspect or the being aspect, and that is translating different aspects to your own lifestyle and also tailor-make them. Everyone has different interests. If you are someone who searches adventure in your life, it can either be translated by a trip to Thailand for 5 days, or you find a way to integrate it where you live, in Paris. If you're a bit shy, going to a karaoke party by yourself, or just taking the train somewhere outside. There are many ways where you can increase your well-being and actually also benefit from a financial perspective, from a health perspective. And it doesn't need to be that sustainable behavior changes are just negative. They actually benefit you in many, many ways.
These are individual changes, the fact that we're all change makers, the fact that we can all become more aware, but maybe that they're not enough to change the huge and daunting challenges that we have in front of us. Climate change, social unrest, social instability, social welfare that we have to redefine. So can actually finance and investment, be the lever we're searching for, this idea that we can change on such a global scale?
First of all, good afternoon. Yes, I think so. I think so, despite the fact that clearly finance cannot alone change and be the trigger all the changes which are necessary. We need scientists, we need regulation, we need NGOs, we need social entrepreneurship, we need a lot of things. But I'm quite impressed to see the changes in the finance industry over the last, I would say, 2 or 3 years. Clearly, there has been a turning point now. Some years ago, if you were speaking about investing in sustainable investment to investors, they will clearly disregard for 2 reasons. The first one is that you are asking them to trade performance returns to values, and investors will not do that. Second, there was no data, no analytical framework to decide what is a good investment in a ESG with ESG criteria. So nothing. Things have totally changed. We have a lot of data providers. We are covering all the investments. We have the scientists. We have the academic research findings. So there's a lot of things which have changed. And today, we believe that investing in sustainable investments is not anymore a niche for some investor, but it's becoming more and more the core of investments. To give you one figure only, with BlackRock, for instance, we believe that in what we call the index funds for equities, we have $12 billion invested in ESG funds. And we believe in 10 years from now, there will be $250 billion. So it means that it is a massive changes.
But does that mean that now investors can shift from revenues to values, or is there something else that changed?
No,
are they in this for the good fight, or are they in this for the money?
Not at all, not at all. But they are more and more aware that performance and investing in sustainability are not contradictory. And that is the big changes. And in BlackRock, for instance, we made a lot of research and give to educate the investors, saying if you invest in sustainable investment, then it doesn't mean that the performance has to be lower compared to the other investments. And this is more and more taking into consideration. We just, for instance, make a study, what are the consequences of the weather events in the US for the electric sector. And we can show that they have had a bad consequences of many equities or municipal bonds, etc. So taking into consideration climate, and if you want to have a long-term profitability, because investors, mainly in the Anglo-Saxon world, are investing for their pensions, and so they are investing long-term. If you want to invest long-term, you want to have long-term profitability. If you want to have long-term profitability, it means that you have to do something for the planet. So this is mainly understood. We should not, it's not our money at BlackRock, it's the money of our clients. So if the client doesn't want to invest in sustainable, we can do nothing against it. But more and more it becomes real. And I think that for BlackRock, we have a little bit, we are not alone. There are a lot of asset managers with a very good asset manager. But I think that we have a little bit of leadership. And we are able to provide a lot of solutions to the investors. Because one of the issues, too, is do we have funds or means to invest for sustainable investments? And more we have that.
So there's money in sustainability now. That's something very good to hear in that room. We actually have a question from
from our activators here, and moving away from money a little bit, we want to ask, how can you make sure that the more diverse heroes that are out there, the more diverse role models, get more visibility, they go further up the pyramid?
That's an open question to all of you. Ashoka, is this something you really, really strive for?
I mean, it's just innate in what we do. We are looking, I think we've elected fellows in 92 countries around the world. So this is diversity of perspective, experience, and solutions that are coming forward working with social entrepreneurs. And so that's just kind of innate in how we identify social entrepreneurship, innovation, and working to change the world.
And going back to, we'll not only talk about finance, but to hear that finance is in for the fight is not only a relief, it's a huge news in a way. Do you also look for diversity and inclusion when you suggest investments to your clients?
Yes, we have a specific, I take the BlackRock experience because we have a specific team which is called stewardship, looks at how the diversity is applied in the companies where we're investing in. Because it's a way to be sure that long-term profitability and long-term views are taken into consideration.
We heard that there's money in sustainability, but there's also a big advantage for major corporations to take within themselves smaller social entrepreneurs, to have a diverse view at how they do business. You've been working with a huge German pharmaceutical company for more than 4 years, I believe. What's in it for them? What's the benefits for the big companies?
Yeah, so the partnership that I work on is called Making More Health, and it's with Boehringer Ingelheim Pharmaceuticals. It's a joint partnership between Ashoka and Boehringer Ingelheim, and it is about making more health happen in communities around the world. And we do that through social entrepreneurship. And what we found was, so I've been working on the partnership for 4 years, but it's actually almost 8 years old now. And in the beginning, it really did start off as kind of your philanthropic, almost CSR-y kind of partnership. But what Boehringer Ingelheim found after a couple of years was, oh my gosh, this is actually a way to do business. And it's a way to do business that, as you were saying before, there's a win-win in it. There's win for business and there's win for social good, and two truths can exist in that. And so through working with Boehringer Ingelheim, they've been able to identify solutions that probably would have never come out of their typical R&D strain before. One that I can think of off the top of my head is called Clinical Garbage Initiative, which was founded by a social entrepreneur in Indonesia, in which they are looking to, or which they've created a strategy in which you can do recycling and garbage collection and receive health services. And so you would never think these kind of two things would come together, but you have social entrepreneurs creating that solution. And with Boehringer Ingelheim taking this journey and kind of stepping out with us, what we've realized is that we can transform companies and organizations in which everyone is an actor for change and everyone is looking for social entrepreneurship and innovating within their company, no matter where they are. And so that has led us to start working with other companies through what we're calling the League of Changemaker companies. And through that, we're now looking at intersectoral change-making between companies like Boehringer Ingelheim, Chanel, Capgemini, Solvay. All of these companies have stepped forward and said, we want to create sustainability. We want to do it in a way that's transforming our company. And we want to do it because with social entrepreneurs so that there's a good for business and a good for social impact.
But that is when it works, when the companies are aligned, when you have the right social entrepreneurs. Some people can feel at a loss in this sort of brave new world that we're facing, this idea that you have to rethink and reshape every process, every produce. How do you advise when people are sort of lost in between all these options? What is the best way to find your own bearing and perhaps your company's bearing if you're looking for such?
At first, just cut out the whole guilt thing and don't try to approach it in a perfectionist way. Take baby steps. And there's a really good thing about unleashing your own planet hero. And that means that you're proud when you haven't forgotten your cotton bag, when you have gone to the bio section in Bio C'est Bon and took your little cotton bag and filled the en vrac things inside of it. And that you can be your own superhero even if you don't do things in a perfect way. That's one part. And then try to attach it to other values you have. I think most of you want your kids to be in a non-toxic and healthy environment. You can raise your green card if you want to. Or live in a healthy way, don't gain weight, have mindful moments where you just have time for yourself, for your family, all these things, or save money in a very pragmatic way. And all these things that are important for us can lead us to sustainability without sustainability in itself being the purpose. And I think we need to look much more at this well-being aspect, that there are a lot of win-win aspects to our personal lives if we start opening ourselves up, and feeling guilty blocks us.
The change we're facing, mostly climate change, is massive in both scale and range. And it could, prove very difficult to some people. In all of your opinions, as an investor, as a social business, as a social entrepreneur, as an advisor, and rooting out for individual changes, in your perspective, would it work best to nudge people to change or to push them to change? As consumers, push the companies you'd invest in, push the companies you'd be working with, push the individuals to change, or should we, again, explain, nudge, and help? It's an open question.
Well, I'm going to pick option C, which is demonstrate, step out there and do it. And once other companies, other people, other individuals and institutions start to see the change, they come. So there's no need to nudge, there's no need to push, just act. And when you act and you're successful, that's when everyone starts to come forward.
Can I just choose all three options?
You can choose everything.
I think it's very important to live as an example, as you were saying it. At the same time, a lot of the policies do not incite environmentally friendly consumerism or actions. So already on a political level, it would be important to start integrating externalities into the prices, and at the same time often also make incentives for producers who produce in an environmentally packaging poor kind of way. And then of course nudging, if we get free public transport, that would nudge us to use our cars less. So I think we are in very urgent times, and it's important to face it from all kinds of directions.
I think for us it starts by just telling what we want, what we believe is important, and it's why our CEO, for instance, is vocal on these issues, which is not very, very frequent in the finance world, because the finance doesn't like to enter into society questions or issues. So I think I said for many years that social responsibility, that long-term investing, that taking into consideration ESG issues are key, and we need, and corporation needs to have a purpose to be successful in the years to come. I think just by taking the floor and saying what we believe it's good for the future is already a very important step, because then people tend to reflect and say, well, it's for real. If I don't have the investors with me in the next decade, my company will be dead, because I will not find the shareholders I need for my company. So I think it starts by that, and it's working.
And would you imagine BlackRock becoming an activist investors, going into companies and saying, look, we just bought 17 of your shares, and
no.
and we're going to make you change the way you do business to become sustainable?
To that extent, no. But clearly, we sometimes are more activists. We vote against Exxon last year because they didn't want to publish the environmental figures. So there are very important steps that, well, when a company like Exxon sees its main shareholder voting against them, it's quite a signal. So there is a lot of things. So we are prudent, we're very conservative, we're finance people, so don't ask us to make the revolution ourselves.
I'm trying.
But we will do our part.
We've been...
They are already not convinced.
No, a lot of the activators. It's a theme they've been having for the rest of the day.
Okay.
Go ahead.
But isn't it also that the term activism is connotated in a very one-sided kind of way? When we hear activism, we think of people who lie down in front of a building or even take some violence.
Now they agree with you, actually.
So
thank you.
even though maybe we place certain companies into the bad guys category, they still do have quite a bit of leverage. And so what they are doing, in a way, is some kind of activism. And I'm saying this as an activist myself who tries to do it in a positive way. So.
There's, of course, many questions we could still ask, but you have around you people who are professionals, they're individuals, they're citizens, they can be investors as well. What would be each and every one of you, your advice to be that first lever? What is the first action or the second action they can take? Because you have people in this room who obviously care about sustainability. How do we take caring about sustainability to become proactive, active, and effective in promoting sustainable change?
Well, I think a lot of people have already taken the first step. It's understanding what your passion is and understanding what your possibility is. And so when you have a passion, when you have and when you understand the possibility that you can create into this world, then you can start to look for actors. Then you can start to look for, I like to call your tribe, those people that you can work with, that can help you to excel an idea, or whose idea you want to help you excel. Not everyone has to be an entrepreneur, but you can be an intrapreneur as well. You can, support other organizations. And I think that when people are able to understand their possibility and their passion, then we can change the world.
For me, it's very important to get rid of cliches, not pointing the fingers at others, and also not at ourselves. It's trying to be the best in your branch, no matter how your branch is viewed. And just seeing vulnerability as strength. You can apply it in your communication strategy. If an oil company says we very deeply and profoundly care about sustainability, there'll be in most of our heads a little question mark. But why can't we say we are trying to improve and do our best and still be an oil company? I think that's very important.
So over the next 15 years, $24 trillion will be inherited by the millennials. So, and the millennials, they said, we are the future. I am the future, so they said on their T-shirt. So the millennials are more interested by environmentally and social responsibility than previous generation. So the only thing is focus on the millennials. You will change because $24 trillion, you will change the world. So it's a massive shift will come from you.
So this morning we learned that we were all about to die. And this afternoon we actually just learned that millennials are actually hugely rich or will soon be, and that we can actually all change the world, and that if we don't, they will change that for us. So we're not all dead afterwards. In narrative terms, we call that to close the loop. So thank you very much for closing that loop with us today.